whisper. People hear you. I might not give back this mic stand. This might be mine. Hey, how you guys doing? So it's really weird to actually sit and worship. It's been like 2 years, so that was kind of cool. Thank you guys. Oh, you guys! I love my worship team. I went through 5 years without having a real worship team, and to have these guys is a really big blessing and stuff. So we are in the middle of a series on love, and Bill spoke about 3 different types of love last week. He had asked me originally to look at Ruth and kind of share some of the story there, and as I was trying to plan it, it just was not working. And so in the interest of talking about love this morning, we're going to talk about divorce instead. Laugh now, it's okay. I recognize that this is like hot topic. Oh my gosh, it can be really awkward. I'm going to try to keep it, I'd say, as light as you can possibly get when you're talking about something like this. But we're going to be talking about divorce and not just divorce, but if you're dating, breakups, and if you're single, there's some stuff here and too on how to maintain your relationships, because really that should be the ultimate goal of relationships. If you like your relationship now, you probably would like to keep it. So we're going to be looking at some of the things that could end your relationship, and so thanks to the help of my sarcastic friends Brendan and Zach, we have come up with the name for the series or this lesson of how to get single in time for Valentine's Day. Both of you guys are in committed relationships. Just saying. So, on the flip side of today's message, if you'd like to save a bunch of money on Valentine's Day, you just do the opposite of what I'm talking about. So here's the deal. I'm a happily married man. I've been married to my wife Tiffany, who is the smoking hot bass player over here. Yeah, buddy. People get all weird. There's a whole debacle thing about calling your wife smoking hot or something. I'm like, I don't care. I love my wife.
That's right.
You're sitting within sitting distance of your wife, aren't you? just throw those out there, please. Just okay. So here's the deal. I've been married for almost 8 years. We've been together to the point that it's easier for me to say since sophomore year of high school than it is for me to try to calculate out the date. We've been together through over a decade of life experiences and shared a lot of memories with one another, and I really do love my wife, but that doesn't mean that our relationship is perfect. Perfection in a relationship is impossible. So if you are trying to find perfection, you're looking for Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, it doesn't exist. If you call yourself a Christian, you know that you are a sinner, that you fail, and you daily make mistakes. If you are finding another human being that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, you're recognizing that they're going to have a bunch of mistakes. So if you get 2 flawed, imperfect people and you put them together, stuff's going to happen. And so you put these 2 people with their own baggage together, and so conflict ensues. And so the question then is, how do we avoid that disaster, and why do relationships seem to go south so often? I remember being in high school, and it's I guess high school, mid school, it's we've been dating for 2 weeks, we're on week 3. Yes. And I remember, you go to high school, it was like we're 1 week anniversary. You get to that 1 month anniversary, and you're like, yes. You get to 6 months was another one, then a year. It eventually gets less and less kind of thing, but yeah, it was like that, those first relationships, you're so excited. And then you get to about week 3 and you're like, this person kind of sucks. What was I thinking? Here's a little piece of dating advice for you. If you are on week 3 and there's red flags, just stop. It's not going to work. You got to be able to make it past week 3 at least. That's the golden standard right there. Week 3, you make it past week 3, it's marriage right there. But people will stay in these doomed relationships for like days, months, years, and before you know it, you're like, what am I doing in this relationship? And the thing that we got to remember is why do people do that? I think sometimes we don't want to accept that it's over. Sometimes like, maybe if I just do this, maybe it's because, there's other things in the relationship that we kind of selfishly want. I'll let you draw your own conclusions there because there's a lot of things that could be. I think for a lot of us, we have a fear of being alone. And I think we end up staying in relationships that we have no business being in for a very long time, many times because we're too afraid to be alone. I want to tell you this Valentine's Day, this season of love, if you will, it is okay to be single. It's not a sin, in this moment here to be single. You don't have to be in a relationship. In fact, it would be better for you to be single right now than to be in a relationship that you have no intention on ever ending in marriage. The moment that marriage is off the table in a dating relationship, you have to call it quits. And I know for a lot of us it seems really weird. Well, it's like, we're just dating, right? We're just dating. Why are you talking about marriage? Because that's the point of dating. If you are dating for any other reason than the eventual goal of marriage, what you're doing is pointless. Because that's what it's for. I'm courting somebody because I am interested in spending the rest of my life with them. At the moment that I no longer have that in my heart and my mind, I know, hey, I really don't want to be around you for the rest of my life, should probably stop it. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to them. It's completely destructive. I mean, if you think about it, what good could possibly come of a situation like that? If you've realized suddenly now that you're in one of those relationships, you can take out your phone and call that person right now. We won't listen, I promise. Sorry, some of us don't have cable. But here's the thing, we go, and people say this word, and it drives me crazy. They'll say, but they're my soulmate. This person is the one, they're my soulmate. I hate to be the bearer of really bad news this morning, there's no such thing. There's no scriptural evidence of one person that was designed specifically for you. The only place that you actually see that in Scripture is Adam and Eve. Eve was specifically made for Adam. But let's be real here. It's not like Adam had a lot of choice. It wasn't... How weird would that have been? Like, first woman he sees, he's like, I've got like 12 more ribs here. Let's see what you can do, guy. Okay, so here's the thing, though. So there's... Oh, man. I hate the term soulmate. I hate the term the one in the context of soulmateship. Because I think it's a cop-out. I think a lot of times we get into a relationship and then suddenly we're like, well, that person over there, that's my soulmate. That's my real soulmate. So maybe we cheat on our spouse because we're like, hey, that person looks interesting. That could be my soulmate. Or something looks better over here. And that person could be the one, so I'm gonna go over there. So if there's no soulmates, if there's no one perfect person out there for you, how do you know when you have found the right person? Probably a good question to ask. It's not so much finding the right person to me. It's just committing to a person. Yes, guys, this means that we need to commit to something, which I know we get a lot of flack for. But in the end here, I mean, let's look at this realistically. I love my wife extremely. She is very, very important to me. But in the context of soulmateship, she's not my soul mate. And the reason I say that is because there are plenty of other relationships where the spouse has passed away or something, somebody gets remarried and they live happily with another person for the rest of their lives. There is probably somebody out there that you could spend the rest of your life with and still be happy. That is not your spouse. If you're realistic, there's 7 billion people or something like that on this planet right now. That's a reality. But I don't care. I don't care that there could be somebody else out there that I would be happy with. It doesn't matter that the pasture could be greener somewhere else. I've decided that this woman is my wife. And that I, as it says, it's like I am my beloved and she is mine there. Okay, I stood before God, my friends, and family and said, I'm going to love you and only you, for better or worse, in sickness and health, rich or poor, right, until I'm dead. Or one of us is dead anyways. With my addiction to pizza, might be me first. but that's what I promised. I said, I am here for you. You and I are it. And I love those vows. I love the whole, for better or worse, sickness and health, rich and poor, because it's like everything that you could really run into, right? I don't like when people write their own vows. If you're like thinking about getting married and you're like, oh, maybe you should write your own vows, I'm going to kind of encourage you not to. Maybe add like your own little thing to the vows if you want to. But you need to be able to say those words and mean them and stick to them. I was at a wedding one time where the bride promised the groom, I promise to always let you play your Xbox. If the thing you are vowing in your marriage can be solved with a second TV, you're in trouble. That's not a vow. I can solve that, with a couple $100 down at Walmart, right? If that's where you're at, if that's the best that you can offer your spouse, don't get married. You are not ready. Now that might seem a little bit intense, right? Bill talks about marriage counseling. He doesn't like doing marriage counseling because the one thing that he does is try to talk you out of it. If he can talk you out of it, you shouldn't be getting married. If you can be talked out of marriage with your spouse, you should not be getting married. Well, it's not your spouse, your significant other. Okay? So why am I so intense about this? Why do I feel it's so important that we talk about this morning? I am a child of divorce. I have lost my family multiple times, and I'm not saying this to pick on my parents. I'm not saying this to be mean or rude or inconsiderate of them. It's just a fact of what has happened in my life. Now, I have obviously forgiven my family, and they're both my mother and father are now in loving, committed relationships now. But when I was growing up, I went through several families. I would watch as somebody would come into my family, into my life. I would give them my care, my love, and then I'd watch helplessly as they were ripped from my life. I would see two people that not just a few years before had stood before God, their friends, and family and said, I will love you and only you until death do we part, no matter what comes in the way. But at some point along the way, they decided to say, you know what? I'm done. I give up. It isn't worth it. Parents, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, your kids are worth it. So figure it out. Now, I'm not telling you that this is going to be easy. And some of you guys have already been through divorce. I get that. I know that we all have our own baggage. We all have our own things that we've gone through. I have my own sin and my own failings in my life. I'm not saying this to fault or hurt you or condemn you with my words here. What I'm telling you is that what you do when you walk out of this building matters. So, I was with somebody one time that was on the, I would say divorce's doorstep. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I could write a book on that, I guess. On divorce, they're right there. They were like filing the papers on Monday. It was like a Sunday night or something like that. And one of the things it says is, I don't love my spouse anymore. There's just no love there, and it would be better for my kids if we split up. It's a lie. Now, yes, if your kid is in an abusive relationship where they're being physically or emotionally abused, if you are in a verbally abusive marriage where you and your spouse cannot control your temper, if you are in a place where it is dangerous for your kids to be there, I understand you've got to do what it takes to get your kids safe. But it's not the best outcome. Divorce is not the best outcome. The absolute best outcome is husband and wife submitting themselves before God, asking for forgiveness from God and from one another, and giving the same forgiveness and the same grace that they were shown. Amen. That is primo number one outcome. Restoration is always better than separation. Now that is absolutely and utterly impossible on your own. Because the kind of forgiveness that takes does not come naturally. But you have to decide before divorce is staring you in the face that it's not an option. Because if divorce isn't an option, it's on the table, and you truly mean the vows that you said you did, you kind of have to figure it out. Because if you're going to stick with somebody for like the rest of your life, man, you don't want to be hanging around an angry person for the rest of your life, or somebody that you can't seem to find any love. And so let's talk this morning a little bit about what Scripture says about divorce, because that's probably an important thing to do in church. So, Matthew 19, starting in verse 1, says, "When Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee and went down to the region of Judea across the Jordan River. Large crowds followed him there, and he healed the sick. Some Pharisees came and tried to trap him with this question: 'Should a man be allowed to divorce his wife for just any reason?' 'Haven't you read the Scriptures?' Jesus replied. 'They record that from the beginning God made them male and female.' And he said, 'This explains why a man would leave his mother and father to be joined as one. Since they are no longer two, but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together.' Then why did Moses say in the law that a man could give his wife a written notice of divorce and send her away?" they asked. Jesus replied, "Moses permitted divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts. It was not what God had originally intended. I tell you this, anyone who divorces his wife and marries someone else commits adultery, unless his wife has been unfaithful." Malachi 2:16, I'm going to get those out. "The man who hates and divorces his wife, says the Lord, the God of Israel, does violence against the one he should protect." So Jesus teaches us something interesting here. Number one, he's very clear that really divorce shouldn't happen. And not just that, the only time that he actually says it's permitted, not mandated, in the case of unfaithfulness. So Jesus teaches us here some really, really important things. But the other thing is that divorce is violence against one that you're supposed to be protecting, which to me is like pretty intense. So the stage has been set, and so it's important for us to kind of take a look at what the Bible actually says about a relationship. What are guys and girls in a marriage relationship? What's it supposed to look like? And we find that in Ephesians 21 through 33. "And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means to submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of his wife, as the Christ is the head of the church. He is the Savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so your wives should submit to your husbands in everything. For husbands, this means to love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her to make her holy and clean, washed by the cleansing of God's word. He did this to present her to himself as a glorious church without spot or wrinkle or any other blemish. Instead, she will be holy and without fault. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. For a man who loves his wife actually shows love for himself. No one hates his own body, but feeds and cares for it, just as Christ cares for the church. And we are members of his body. As the scriptures say, a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. This is a great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. So again I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." Do you know how controversial that verse is? Yeah. Anybody that's ever tried to explain that verse to a non-believer cringes at that verse. Because we look at that, and even as believers now, we go back to it and we're like, ooh, that's going to be real awkward to, it's not like the verse you want to read like when you're a wife and you are in an argument. You're like, well, Ephesians 22 says, wives, submit to your husband. Guys, there are scriptures that you can pull out. That's not one of them. Trust me. Also, I will say of note, when people like to pull this verse out of thin air, they like to omit 21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. That part matters. It's true. So here's the deal. let's talk about this, because it's crazy. This verse is like, freaks people out, it makes people mad. But I think it's funny because if you actually read it, it means something that your gut reaction is to this verse, because I think we as humans get offended by things way too easily. So if you look at this, first off, nowhere in here does it say that one person is less than the other person. Just because you were called to submit or you were called to love unconditionally and with everything you have doesn't make you better or worse than another person. Second, nowhere in here does it say that the man is supposed to lord his authority over the woman. Thank you, Tammy. But if you read verse 1 or verse 21, it puts everything into perspective here. And further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. It has nothing to do, necessarily, I guess, with submitting to your husband or whatever. The reality is that what this is God saying, okay, look, woman, here's how you treat your man. Man, here's how you treat your woman. And you're going to do this for each other, yes. But you're doing it because it's a thing that I am telling you to do. It's a covenant between you and God here as man, as God and woman, and it's something that is being commanded of you as man and God. And so there is a connection here between God that we kind of leave out of this if you get rid of verse 21. It's not about lording authority. It's not about treating somebody worse. Guys, you can't take this and twist it. Don't pervert this into some kind of power struggle. The idea is that you are surrendering something that is only appropriate for you to give to your spouse and your spouse alone. So, now that we know what this is supposed to look like, let's talk about how to prevent divorce from happening. I feel like I've got decent grounds to say this because I, so far, have managed to keep a healthy relationship. But here's the thing. These are things that I've gone through. These are things that have potentially, if left unchecked, could have messed up my marriage. So let's talk about this. First one is never take your spouse or your significant other for granted. If there was ever a thing that was going to destroy my relationship with my wife, we've both said this, it would be this one. Because it's so easy when you've got a solid relationship, when things are going great, you're just going along through life, and I didn't have this, but it kind of came to me while we were doing things. It's like I've got my life here, you've got your life here, and we're going through this together, parallel, everything's great. And then eventually what ends up happening is you kind of forget to do all the nice little things. And what happens is you kind of start drifting apart. It's this weird little natural thing, and pretty soon, like 3 years later, you look at each other, and you're like, you know, we haven't really been fighting, but I don't really feel close to you. And I don't really know why. The reason is because you're taking each other for granted. You assume that because everything is so perfect, everything is so good in your relationship that you can just keep kind of par for the coursing it and it's going to be okay. And the reality is, unfortunately, it's not. You can never stop dating your spouse. You can't stop doing the little things. If that's for your spouse, if that's buying her flowers, if that means that you spend quality time, it's different for each and every single person. We all receive and care for love in different ways. But you cannot forsake that. You can't stop dating your spouse. When I was, before Resonate, I was part of a different church, and our pastor left, moved down to Florida, and basically a church was dropped in my lap. That's terrifying. It'd be like somebody dropping a newborn in your lap and being like, here. Yeah, good luck, exactly. It's terrifying, and so somebody, God bless their heart, called me up like a week later, was like, hey, I've been through this exact thing, I'd like to meet with you, and we'll talk a little bit. And I was like, cool, great, I could use some advice here because my church is going crazy. So we met and we talked, and the very first words out of his mouth were, what night is date night? I was like, well, we'll have date night. We don't need date night, we're cool. Well, I was an idiot. So here's the thing, okay? We started up date night. We picked a night out of the week. It's changed. I think it used to be Thursday. Now it's a different day of the week. I'm not telling you. One night a week, you need to shut off your phone. You need to shut off Facebook, shut off the TV, anything that would cause you not to actually interact with your spouse and you need to spend time, and not just spouse, this is dating relationship too, by the way. Get in the habit of this now, because if you can't do it when you're dating, you're going to have big problems with marriage. You need to shut out the world and spend time with your spouse. Yes, this means if you have children, you need to get rid of them for the night. Not permanently, by the way, that's not legal. But you know, if you have, here's my personal advice. I don't have children, but here's what I'm going to do. My wife is pregnant, by the way. Yeah, buddy? So now you can ask her without being awkward. I always feel like that awkward stage where women start growing and you're like, is that just like, is that a baby? Or, you know? No, you can say she's pregnant. It's okay. She's not sharing my affinity for pizza. So here's the thing though, right? So you have a date night, and what my recommendation would be is this. Find another couple at Resonate that you trust, that won't lock your kids in their basement or something weird, and switch. Hey, on Tuesday nights, I'll take your kids so you guys can have date night. And on Thursday, you give me your kids, we'll have date night. And swap out kids. You get free childcare, everybody's happy. But it needs to be without your kids, because quite honestly, if you guys have ever had to have a date when children are like within 500 years away from you, I don't know why you said years, miles, let's say, children ruin date night faster than anything. But
I'll take them.
Zach will take your kids. Okay, and I'm not saying that your kids are bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that your kids are bad. But you have to remember, there was a point in your life where that kid was not around, and it was just you two. Date night is a time to get back to that. Your kids are wonderful. Spend the rest of the week with them, great. But you need a week, or a day of your week, that you focus on just that person. This is really hard. I know it seems really like, oh, date night, that sounds great. That sounds easy. You know, sometimes you get really busy, but as most pastors find out, we like to get tested on this the week that we're preaching. So this week, I have been waiting for some guitar stuff for like 3 or 4 years. Like, there's some stuff that I was really excited about getting. It finally came on Monday night. Date night's Tuesday night. I'll just let you know you can't take it anyways. What are you going to do about it? So Monday night rolls around, I get all my stuff, I unbox it, and I have no time to play with it because I got to get up for work the next day, so I get it all put together, and I'm thinking in my brain, I'll just tell my wife that Tuesday, we'll just not have date night this week. I got all this stuff coming, it'll be great. I'll play with my stuff, Tiffany can watch The Office, and we'll call it a day. So Tuesday we had date night. And it was awesome. We went down to the dockside, had dinner, and other stuff. But you can go out to eat, you can go on an adventure, you can just stay home and argue about Monopoly. You know, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be extravagant, but you need to spend time with your significant other at least once a week. If you can make time to watch sports, you can make time to spend one night a week with your spouse. If you can make time to play video games, you can make time to spend with your spouse or significant other. If you can make time to do really anything, if you can make time to work, if your work is taking you completely from your spouse, find a different job. Because it's not worth it. It's just not. Here's the thing, pro tip here. Until you get like creepy about date night, where you like will not turn it down for anything, it's just an appointment. If anybody ever asks you, you know, hey, I've got a standing weekly appointment on Tuesday night. Sorry. People will try to take date night from you like all the time. I don't know why people have no boundaries here, but it's so critical. It's so critical that we date our spouses, that we date our significant others at least once a week. And quite honestly, I feel like it should be way more than that. But our culture's so busy that if you can at least start there, I promise it will change your relationship. There has been nothing more impactful in me and my wife's relationship, except probably a child. That might change this a little bit, but everybody keeps telling me things get different, but I don't see it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay. But nothing has made my relationship stronger with my wife in the past couple of years. You know, after that whole thing, you know, the church was over and I was here. We kept it going. We've missed a few date nights. It's happened. You know, life gets in the way. Emergencies happen. but don't forsake date night for guitar toys. She'll call you on it. So, second thing, we have to make sure that we are willing to forgive and forget. Okay, this one's really, really hard. Bible actually says it this way. It says, never let the sun go down on your anger. I tell you that, obviously, first, because it's in the Bible. Second, it's solid advice. And third, it's really weird to sleep next to somebody who's mad at you. You gotta, like, creep into the bed or something like that. It's so weird. Disagreements are going to happen. I untied my shoe, so I'm an adult. But if you plan on sticking with your vows, you have to figure it out. You can't just not, right? If your vows are, I'm going to be married to this person for the rest of my life, in sickness, health, rich or for poor, better or worse, at some point, you're going to have to figure it out. That's kind of why I tell people, if you're going to spend eternity with one another, figure it out. Because eternity is a long time. But here's the thing. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of time so that you aren't destructive. We say really dumb stuff when we're mad, and when we're hurt, and when we're injured. And so I would encourage you, if you need to take like an hour or something, that's what Tiffany and I do. Typically we go off for about 30 minutes to a couple hours, spend a little time alone. I'll go blow something up on a video game. I don't know what she does actually. She'll probably up in real life. I would love my wife immensely if I found that out. Not that I know already. But so, here's what the Bible says. The Bible's actually pretty intense on this one. Matthew 5:21 says, you have heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I say that if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in the danger of the very fires of hell. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, go and be reconciled with that person, and then come and offer your sacrifice to God. What does that mean? It means that if you are having a fight right now, you shouldn't be here. At its core, that's really kind of what it's meaning here. Yeah, you need to take the time and go to God and ask for forgiveness. You need to take that time to ask for the strength to offer that same forgiveness to somebody else. But what it's saying is here is, look, when you're not forgiving somebody, when you guys are in this messed up situation, your heart is not in the right place to worship me. You can't pretend like nothing's happening when you're arguing with your spouse. If your spouse are having a fight or having a disagreement, you can't just continue on life like nothing's wrong, because something is wrong until you resolve it. Now once you resolve it, you gotta let it go. Don't be using old ammunition on somebody. It's just, you obviously didn't forget at that point. So here's the other piece to this though. The last piece of advice that I would give you for a relationship that actually works and stands the test of time is not to give up. And I know that you were hoping for a sexier thing at the end of this, but it's really it. Never give up. And unfortunately, I've seen Galaxy too many times. Who said it? I heard somebody say it. Never give up, never surrender. It always, every time I say never give up. But it's the point. Never give up on your spouse. Never let your spouse give up on you. The reason that Tiffany and I's relationship is going to work, the reason that I'm so confident in what we have, is that neither one of us are willing to give up on the other person. Yeah, my wife is going to do some things that are going to drive me nuts. Tammy's been to worship practice. She knows that I'm going to drive her nuts too. Okay, that's the reality. We're messed up people. We get together. We're going to make each other mad. But if you're unwilling to give up on somebody else, you can make it work. The instant you say, you know what? Not worth it. Give up. That's it. I mean, that's the nail in the coffin. The moment you're no longer willing to work at it, it's over. As long as you are still in the fight, it's still possible. So, here's the thing. I'm not really worried about what life is going to throw at Tiffany and I next. Yeah, we're bringing in like a third person into our lives in like 6 months. I know that there's going to be some crazy changes in my life. I know that I will probably not be getting very many guitar toys. I know that things are going to change. I know that we're going to be tired and we're going to be grumpy for like years. But I'm not worried about her and I's relationship. Because I know that no matter what happens, I know that however messy it gets, that we're going to stick it out and we're going to work through it. If I make a mistake, my wife's going to call me on it, and we're going to work through that mistake, like trying to skip date night. It did not work well for me. But she didn't give up on me, and I'm not going to give up on her. I promised her that in sickness and health, whether it was good or bad, or whether we were rich or poor, that we were going to stick it out, and we were going to figure this thing out. And so if I could have any one trait in a person, what I look for in friends, what I look for in my spouse, I don't really get to look for it in my family because they're kind of appointed to the job, but is somebody who won't give up on me. Those are the people that I surround myself with. So if you're surrounding yourself, and this is, we're obviously outside of the realm of even dating right now. If you have people in your life that have no interest in you, or they don't have the commitment to you, that they wouldn't give up on you, they're not who you think they are. And if I could have anything in a person, this is what I would take. Somebody who is unwilling to give up on me. Because quite honestly, I make enough mistakes that it'd be fairly easy to give up on me. But my wife is incredible and doesn't do that. And I know that for some of us, this seems impossible. And I said I know that some of you guys have been through divorces, whether it was your parents or whether it was yourself. Whether it was willing or not, whatever happened, that's kind of the path that's behind now, but that's what I get to look forward to.
This is what you have to look forward to, by the way.
I am getting one. I always thought we're expecting is such a funny term. You're expecting what? So here's the thing. Don't give up on your spouse. And I know that you guys might be in a relationship right now where you're the only one that feels this way. Maybe you're the only one that feels like you're putting in the effort to not give up on somebody. I'm really sorry you're there right now, but don't give up. If your spouse isn't in that spot, sometimes your spouse isn't going to feel it. Like, it's really messy, I don't really know what to do. But if you show that love and your support to your spouse or your significant other, things can change. And if you pray for your spouse and spend time dating and caring for your spouse, things can change. It's not over until it's over. I'm going to tell you a quick little story here at the very end. There was a man who wanted to divorce his wife. And he went to his counselor and he said, I've tried everything. We tried Patrick's date night idea. That was a disaster. We tried everything that we could, but I don't love my wife anymore. I want to file for divorce. And the guy said, look, okay, here's the thing. You go home to your wife, and for the next month, I want you to treat her like a princess. Like she is the absolute best thing that ever happened to you. Treat her like you were dating, and do everything you can to look out for her and care for her. So he leaves, and before he goes, he says, look, if you do this, I'll pay all your lawyer fees for the divorce. You go do this for a month, I'll pay for the fees. So the guy's like, all right, cool, this is going to be great because I save a bunch of money. I get her all excited for something that's just not going to happen. And it'll be great. It'll just kind of, put it in her face kind of thing. So a month rolls by, counselor guy doesn't hear anything. About 6 weeks roll by, still nothing. 8 weeks roll by, he finally decides, I'm going to give this guy a call. So he calls him and goes, hey, do you want me to file this paperwork? He said, why would I want to divorce my wife? She's a princess. It's a little sweet story, I know, but here's the thing. How we treat each other matters. Okay? What you think about your wife, what you think about your husband matters. They kind of become that thing. Okay? If you're dating somebody that you just treat like junk, you're going to get junk back. Okay? If you treat somebody like they're the most important thing in your life, that you would not give up and that you would cherish them for the rest of your life, they become that. Now, sometimes that doesn't always work out like you expect it to. And that's where God comes into play. Because a lot of this stuff that I'm telling you seems impossible because it is. The fact that my relationship with my wife is strong, yeah, we're pretty decent people. We're not terrible people. But the thing that makes it work when we fail, which is kind of frequent, is God. God's able to come into my flaws and my life and is able to allow my wife to forgive me for my failings. At the same token, God's able to give me the strength to love and care for my wife when sometimes it's like I don't know what's going on. See, that's the piece to this all. You look in here, you look at that verse that skipped. It says that we do this as a reverence for God. Yeah, your relationship is here, but how you treat each other is a reflection on Christ. It's a reflection of how you view Christ. Because if you love God, you're going to love your wife as yourself. You're going to love your wife as He loves the church, being able to lay down absolutely everything you have for that person. Wives, if you love your husband, Christ calls you to submit to them. And take the word here, submit. Yes, it's submission. It's also trust. It's also respect and honor. There's a difference between submission and slavery. Okay? So here's the thing. We're gonna pray here real quick. I know that we have kind of had a heavy morning this morning. But just because something is a heavy topic, just because divorce might be a hot topic, doesn't mean that we as a church shouldn't talk about it. If you are going through something now and you need to sit down and talk about it, I am more than willing to sit down and talk. I know this is really, really hard. I know that a lot of us have made mistakes. Every single one of us have come in here with things that we've done that we thought were unforgivable. Doesn't matter what's already happened. God's able to forgive and work through that. So I just want to give you that little bit of hope there. So let's pray real quick as the worship team comes back up. Father God, I thank you for this group of people, God. I thank you that we can come together in a place, Lord, that's, God, usually showing movies and worship you and put you first. But God, as we look at our relationships and examine our own hearts now, it's so easy for us to, God, become jaded and become selfish. And Lord, I pray this morning that you would cause us to, God, take a step back. Lord, and to trust in you, to speak and work in those relationships that we feel like there's just no hope and that everything is lost. God, as long as we are willing to lean on you, God, as long as we're willing to never give up in the situation, there's always hope and there's always something good that can come of it. Amen.